Good afternoon, I'm Jeff Gorman, owner of Creative Computing, Princeton's only Apple specialist store, located at 423 Wall Street across from the Princeton Airport. Welcome to our show, Apple Talk by Creative Computing. Here we discuss everything Apple, from products to software, even technical issues. I'm Jeff. Let's start off today with the new iPads, rumors about new iPads that are coming up. Rumors persist that the screen size of that Apple will be releasing a 7.8-inch iPad. That big? Have to wait and see. It uses something, supposedly now, these are recent rumors, it uses something called G/F2, thin film technology, which lets the screen go from being 3 layers of stuff to glass and 2 more layers underneath it to 2 layers, allowing the iPad to be a little bit thinner. It's more transparent as well. Rumors persist that this will be a fall release for this iPad. We'll have to wait and see. And interestingly, even though it's only 7 inches, supposedly it's going to have the same pixel density as the third generation iPad, meaning it's going to look really, really sharp and be even nicer than the iPhone 4. While we're on the iPhone rumors persist about the new iPhone 5 that everybody's heard about. Biggest rumor, of course, is that it will have iOS 6. I'm not sure what's going to be in that yet. You'll hear it first on Apple Talk by Creative Computing. I do have a little bit more later in the show about potential things on iOS 6. The Wall Street Journal has reported that it's going to have a 4-inch display. I don't know where they get their information, but that's pretty good. It won't be any wider, just longer. We'll have to wait and see. I wouldn't mind having my iPhone be a little bit bigger. Another rumor from one of the display manufacturers in China is that display production is to begin next month. Another good thing. We'll wait and see. The iPhone 5, as you know, will have 4G LTE, making it very fast on the internet, just like the new iPad. And another nice thing I keep hearing is it will finally allow FaceTime without Wi-Fi. FaceTime on the 3G network and possibly the 4G network. Users have seen warnings indicating this is coming. For instance, if you're on a FaceTime call on your Wi-Fi network and during the call you disable 3G, you get a warning that this may disrupt FaceTime. Now right now this won't disrupt FaceTime, but why is the warning there? That's a common way that people learn things about upcoming Apple products, or error messages and the like that make their way into current products. We'll see. Carriers may not like having FaceTime. It uses their bandwidth, it lets you avoid using their services and paying them. They're stuck though. Apple's Apple, if they want to do it, it's going to happen. I'm sure it's going to be great. I personally, though, haven't had a whole lot of use for FaceTime. I've only used it maybe twice, and both of those were really in demos. But I certainly see the potential, and I keep meaning to try it with my kids and their grandparents. As reported last time on Apple Talk by Creative Computing, Apple was trying to take control of the website, or the URL, iPhone5.com. They wouldn't. They didn't pay the person. It seems that a lot of people try to predict products that Apple will make, which isn't that hard to do, and buy URLs that represent those products, hoping probably to get some money from Apple. iPhone5.com, Apple managed to get without paying, just by pursuing with the authorities that are in charge of domains the rights to this one. Moving on with rumors, new MacBook Pros. Rumors are getting stronger and stronger. We've heard that they're a little bit constrained. So far we've been able to get all the Macs that our customers have wanted, but I don't know how it's going to go, so who knows. But they're a little bit constrained. New MacBook Pros supposedly will have NVIDIA graphics again, and Retina displays. You need the powerful graphics processor in order to handle a Retina display. Retina displays, though, they're not cheap. They could add $65 to $92 to the cost, depending on the size of the MacBook. In the case of the iPad, when the Retina display was added to the new iPad, the cost of that was not passed on to customers. So who knows what Apple will actually choose to do, whether there'll be Retina displays or not. I do think Retina displays would be an amazing thing on a notebook or even an iMac, more on the iMac in a moment, because it finally gives a comparison factor with computers made by other manufacturers that nobody else has. Every computer has this speed and that processor and this much storage, but nobody else has a Retina display, and that's a pretty significant thing. I'm waiting to see how that pans out. The new MacBook Pros will have Intel's Ivy Bridge processor, which we've talked about here on Apple Talk. faster, better power consumption, USB or Bluetooth 4, and USB 3. Should be a very nice processor. And also rumors support the idea that the reason there's been such a long time since a new MacBook has come out from Apple is waiting on the Ivy Bridge processor. As always, Apple will be the first one to have it. The new MacBook should be super thin, probably no optical drive, and potentially an SSD option. SSD drives, they cost a little bit more, they have lower capacity. You might get the option if you buy a new MacBook of getting either a smaller SSD or a big hard drive. We'll have to wait and see. And Bloomberg, another source of information out there, says that Retina display MacBooks are coming in June. Again, I don't know. We're an Apple specialist. We haven't heard anything specific about that. New MacBook Airs. There hasn't been much rumor about that. We don't think so. The MacBook Air is pretty popular in its current configuration. The only potential thing that it might have if one comes is Retina displays. Otherwise, the hardware is pretty good. I don't know that the Sandy Bridge processor will make it into the MacBook Air yet or not. We'll see, and we'll certainly keep you posted here on our show. New iMacs, like I said, I'd get back to them. No constraint issues on new iMacs. Don't know whether it will come or not. One of the rumors, though, about a new iMac is a Retina display. Now, picture the 27-inch iMac. That thing is huge. If you put a Retina display on an iMac like that, it would be 5,000 pixels across by almost 3,000 up and down. That's incredible. I don't even know that there's video out there that can display at that high quality, not even in a movie theater. It's just so much pixel density. It would need incredible video hardware, definitely a separate processor. Apple works a lot with NVIDIA, and my guess would be that NVIDIA will provide a processor to handle that much video. Just the video RAM is huge from that thing. Just an amazing thing. Supply chain rumors do support an eventual Retina display iMac. But again, until there's a video source, I'm not sure what the point is. Coming up still, Mac OS X. 10.74 was released. It has a bunch of bug fixes, just the continuing iterations of Lion. Lion's very nice. I've noticed that here and there when you're forced to reboot unexpectedly or power goes out, Lion comes back up. It seems to never lose anything. It has all your documents. The windows don't even change. It's proven to be a very nice, very stable operating system. I recently took the server test that Apple requires of specialists on the Lion server. It's getting more and more capable as you dig into the depths of Lion. It can just do so many things. And Mountain Lion is coming, should take it even further. I'm amazed every time I get a new Mac OS and they introduce yet another 150 features. I'm like, wow. But it just gets better and better and better. Speaking of Mountain Lion, the 3rd developer preview has been released and the 4th developer preview for the server version. Rumors are that the release date will be announced at Apple's Worldwide Developer Conference, which begins June 11th. That's typically in the late spring, early summer in June, when Apple introduces new products. Rumors are also strong that the iPhone 5 will be announced at that time. Whether any of these things will be available, MacBook Pros will come out, nobody really knows. But that's a typical time. And this will be the first WWDC without Steve. Apple is supposed to, quote, at this, unveil the future of iOS and OS X. So there's going to be definitely some announcements on the software front. As of June 1st, Apple App Store apps, meaning apps that developers want to sell on Apple's App Store for the Macintosh, will have to respect sandboxing rules. Sandboxing limits operations an app can perform on your Macintosh. This is a significant block to any sort of malware. When a program gets on your Mac, it has a set of permissions, and those are the only things it's allowed to do. It enables very tight control of things like web browsers, which are common entry points, and email programs, common entry points for malware to get on your computer. Typically, your word processor, for instance, is not going to be the source of malware. Although, anything can happen with technology. Gatekeeper, another feature of Mountain Lion, will actually restrict installs of apps with the potential to behave badly. Next time on Apple Talk by Creative Computing, we will have a preview or a conversation about all of the features that have been announced so far in Mountain Lion. I'll explain the ins and outs of them and what they're good for. iOS 6 rumors. An app developer analyzing the OSs using his app has seen a few sightings of iOS 6. Developers can see what operating systems, what iPads, whatever, use their apps. They can get a sense of where they might want to market or do development, etc. And at least one developer has said that iOS 6 devices have used his app. The odds are what those are devices in use at Apple by the team that's developing iOS 6. They get iOS 6 going, they try apps on it. They have to test it and see how it works, see what crashes and doesn't. And that's why regular app developers have seen iOS 6 as a device or as an OS using their applications. Previous versions of iOS also, this is what happened. This is a common way that people find out about upcoming products, software from Apple, and makes its way to rumor mills and our show. Siri, an interesting little thing with Siri. Recently, Siri, if you ask Siri what is the best smartphone ever, it had been responding that the Nokia Lumia was the best. Apple has since fixed this. Now if you do it, it says, "What, are you kidding?" It's pretty funny. And just interestingly on all of this, the Lumia said that the iPhone was the best. So software, as you can tell, software is very objective. On Siri, believe it or not, there's yet another Apple lawsuit. Some people sued Apple because Siri performs more slowly than you see on TV and is proven far less capable than you see on TV. I don't know about this. I've tried some of the exact queries that are on the television ads, and Siri has always responded the exact way, except in my geography, of course, the exact way it has in the commercials. I found it to work largely just like Apple described. Would I like it to do more? Certainly. But it's a pretty good start with voice technology that's really useful. It isn't just wrote and fixed in little areas on your computer. It does more than dictation. Apple has been playing with voice technology, though, for a very long time. Even OS 9 had voice recognition and commands. And on your current Mac now, if you look in Universal Access, you can enable voice commands, and you can teach it commands. Apple's response to the suit. So far, they've said, 1, the plaintiffs lack standing. 2, it's only beta software. True enough, they call it beta. That might be the kind of thing you want to continue to call beta. It's normal to shorten the response time in ads, and they only have 30 seconds. TV time's expensive. And people like us watching television don't want to watch a customer ask Siri a question and wait 2 seconds of silence during the commercial while they wait for a response. It's not always 2 seconds even, but still, I think Apple's point is valid. And Apple certainly points out this: if you don't like Siri, the iPhone is returnable for 30 days. So if you don't like it, don't use it. Seems pretty fair to me. AirPrint. Apple has announced that over 200 printers are now supported on AirPrint. That's pretty good. I remember a year ago it was like 5. AirPrint is an interesting technology. It's what lets the iPads, iPods, phones, iOS devices print. In the old days, meaning last year, in the old days when you wanted to print, you had to put a driver on your device. And what a driver did is it allowed an application to print in a generic fashion. For instance, if you had a word processing document, you need, like this one here, you need lines of text up and down. So your word processor says put a line of text, a line of text, line of text, and so on. And then in the printer, the print driver intercepts that command and converts those commands to what the printer needs to know where to actually put the dots on the paper. Because ultimately, when you get down to it, the printer's putting dots on the paper. With AirPrint, the driver is moved into the printer. So now the computer can just say, print these lines of text, and then the printer says, okay, takes the lines of text and knows how to handle its own commands. In effect, it moves the driver off the device and onto the printer, which ultimately makes more sense. In defense of drivers, years and years ago, the processing power just wasn't there. In order to calculate where the words that you type or the pictures that you draw need to have corresponding dots on the paper and whatever color they are and all of that, that's a lot of work. So in the past, that work was done by the computer because that's where the processor was. Now the processors are getting cheaper, more powerful, smaller, less power using, cooler. It's possible to put the processing power that a printer needs directly on the printer, hence AirPrint. Ultimately, I predict, and here Apple Talk by Creative Computing predicts, that every single printer will be AirPrint capable. And even on your computer, you won't need to install drivers any longer. We're not there yet. Apple will, of course, be first, just like they are now with AirPrint. iCloud. 35 people out of 120 million iCloud users, 35 out of 120 million, have reported messages in their iCloud folder, in their iCloud email sent folders that they did not send. One guy feels that Apple must have been hacked because his password was like 30 digits long and created by one of those password generators. Who knows? Apple hasn't really officially responded to this, but they have said, check your iCloud account, meaning go onto the web. Don't look on your local email client. Go onto the web at iCloud.com, log in, look at email, look at your sent folders, and see if there's anything there that you don't recognize. If there is, report it to Apple and change your password. A reasonable thing. And again, 35 users out of 120 million, I would bet the explanation is something else. We'll have to find out. And yet another lawsuit for Apple. Here we go again. This one is on iCloud. The suit charges that Apple failed to properly transition paid MobileMe subscribers. The plaintiffs say that mail did not work, and they're finding a lot of annoyance by having multiple Apple IDs. It has gotten a little more annoying to have multiple Apple IDs. But supposedly Apple's going to fix that. We talked about that last time. I believe they will. I have two myself. I'd like to have one. I just need Apple to allow me to merge them because they do different things for me. I personally, and I'm sure a lot of you, converted my own MobileMe account to iCloud. In fact, I did mine in public at a Mac user group, the Princeton Mac users group. And I had no grief at all. Smooth, 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 smooth. The only mistake that I had, which is my fault, was after I did this, I got a Mac to upgrade one of the Macs at my house, which was only running Leopard. Couldn't go to Lion. So I got a new Mac, I migrated over, and while iCal was still building, I went in there and deleted the calendars that were on the computer, and by the time it merged, it turned out that I deleted the calendars on my iCloud. It wasn't a big deal. I had a backup on my laptop, and it took me about half an hour to actually restore it, but that was a moment of nervousness. But at any rate, and that was my fault. I know why it happened, how it happened, and what to do to fix it. I've had no issue with iCloud at all, set it up for many users, and had no problems whatsoever. Flashback malware, the virus from a few weeks ago. Turns out Apple has released a removal tool and has patched the system. The removal tool is good for Leopard, Snow Leopard, and Lion. When the malware had been installed, it installed a bot that caused ads to display on your screen, ads that you might not have otherwise seen. It turns out that that generated about 400,000 click-throughs. That's pretty good. 98% of which went to the same affiliate who processes the click-throughs. And from what I understand about it, that was probably worth $14,000 or $15,000 to the developer. But the affiliate made sure that nobody was paid. So in the end, this whole flashback malware proved to fizzle out, and now the Mac OS is even more secure. Wait till Mountain Lion went in as gatekeeper. Malware is going to be next to a virtual impossibility. With technology, anything, I read a book, anything science can make, science can circumvent. That's always going to be the case. But gatekeeper is going to make it excessively hard for a Mac to be compromised going forward with Mountain Lion. What else? Tim Cook, the new CEO of Apple, met with House Speaker John Boehner. No idea what's discussed, but John Boehner's office released a picture of the two of them talking. Apple generally hasn't done a whole lot with the federal government, but lately they've been lobbying more for their causes, some of which are Apple's been speaking out for net neutrality. Apple definitely wants, like a lot of people do, some IP, intellectual property, and patent reform. Right now, you get a good idea, and there's so much infighting between all the technology developers that good ideas are not allowed to be shared. They need a way. There's something about the patents and intellectual property. This area moves too fast. And also, Apple's been getting some government pressure due to the lawsuit about the books on Apple's iBooks app. iBooks, supposedly there might have been some price fixing kind of things going on. So Apple's under investigation by, I think, the FTC. So maybe that's also why they had a conversation with John Boehner. Not sure, but certainly interesting. And I know John Boehner doesn't want to meet with me, but he's very happy to meet with Tim Cook. I bet he uses a Mac. Going on. The American Consumer Satisfaction Index, which measures consumer satisfaction, obviously, with various products and services. The iPhone, as far as phones go, the runaway winner. 83% of users are satisfied with their iPhones. That's a pretty huge statistic. It's 8 points higher than the nearest rival. It's also lower, interestingly, than the satisfaction index for people and their Macintoshes. 87% of Mac users are satisfied with their Macintosh. I know I am. Mine's like, my personal Mac is about 4 years old, 4 gigs of RAM, a little bit underpowered. I'm waiting to see what happens if there are, in fact, new MacBook Pros before I upgrade it. So I give it another month or two. But even with it being that old, I am totally satisfied with that Mac. On the iPhone still, Apple has about 8% of the global handset market. That's a huge thing for something that's as new as the iPhone is. It's been out, what now, 3-4 years? That's a pretty good market achievement. It's notable, too, in that Apple largely only makes one model. Other manufacturers have different models like flip phones and ones with and without keyboards and antennas and this, that, and the other feature. Apple pretty much makes the iPhone. Sure, it has 3 different amounts of RAM, but the iPhone's the iPhone. They still produce a couple of the old ones. You can get iPhone 3s and 3Gs. No, 3Gs and 4s. But nonetheless, it's really just the iPhone, so it's pretty amazing. In fact, Apple is now the 3rd largest phone maker in the world, behind only Nokia and Samsung. Another huge achievement. At one point, Nokia had like 70% of the worldwide phone market. And now they're in decline. In fact, like we mentioned last time on our show, one credit rating agency thinks that it's going to become a junk bond. In China, as part of this worldwide adoption of the iPhone, Microsoft says Windows has a 7% market share compared to Apple's 6%. I can't say if that's true. It's hard for me to imagine Windows having more of a market share than Apple in any product. Apple is in talks with China Mobile to carry the iPhone, which China Mobile currently does not carry in an official fashion. Although rumors are about 15 million iPhones are on their network anyway, just without official support. I like that in China, which is somewhat known here in the US as being a little bit closed and politically restrictive, doesn't have any rules. If you can get your iPhone to work on their network, great. Of course, I understand you can also buy any software package you want on the street. So it's interesting, in some ways they like to be restrictive, some ways they don't. Apple has provided technical assistance to facilitate the 15 million users. I don't know if that means to the phone users or to China Mobile. I have to assume that was China Mobile. It's the only thing that makes any sense. I predict that ultimately the iPhone will become the most popular phone in China, like it slowly but surely is everywhere else. Sprint was a winner as the best carrier, but very tight race. I'm thinking of switching my own iPhone to Sprint. It's just more cost effective. And the BlackBerry, which had been the leader for a long time, especially in the business world, has slipped to 63% of customer satisfaction.
Okay.
And finally, the BlackBerry's customer satisfaction slid to 63%. They used to be the leader, but I don't know. Everything I've done with the BlackBerry has always left me unsatisfied. It doesn't sync well with the computer. It's a real hassle to use. It doesn't have the best set of apps or anything like that. It does have a very good email push system, but that's done by one of their servers, not by the phones themselves. Everyone I know that has a BlackBerry really wants an iPhone. And like we talked about previously on the show, 90-something% of people who plan to buy a phone plan to buy an iPhone. Don't blame them. The North Carolina data center, moving on. Apple has said that the North Carolina data center will be using 100% renewable energy by the end of 2012. That's pretty good. They're now building a second solar array. We talked previously on here about the huge solar array they built at first. Well, they bought even more land and they're building a second one so that they can be fully using renewable energy. Together, these 2 solar arrays cover over 250 acres. That is just huge. Think about the sheer amount of power. I'm impressed, and in fact, no other company is using solar or renewable energy at this scale. It's just an amazing thing. And for Apple to power such a huge data center and not have an electric bill, that's another amazing thing. The Oregon data center that they're building now also, they have promised, will use 100% renewable energy. I don't know if that'll be solar arrays, fuel cells like they also have in North Carolina. Don't know, but we'll see. It's also amazing that Apple has this gigantic data center in North Carolina that's brand new, and they already need another one in Oregon. That's just, I mean, what is all this data? Could be all iCloud though, 120 million users so far, but 120 million users, that's like 2 servers. I don't get it. I'm interested though, maybe they have big things coming down the pike. And then finally, Apple board member Mickey Drexler says one of the last things that Steve talked about was an iCar. Drexler said had Steve built the iCar, probably would have had 50% of the auto market. That's an amazing thing. Could you imagine driving around in an Apple iCar? You know, what would it do? I mean, would it have Siri? Siri, drive me home, please. And it would just drive you home. I mean, it could be an amazing thing. How do I get there? Please order a pizza before I get home. It could do so many things. And also, think about riding in a car like with your family and you're all facing each other. You could be eating or you could have a business meeting, whatever the case is, with nobody driving. I think that would be an amazing thing. And in fact, on that line, Google just recently got a license, an actual license plate and registration for an unlicensed car. And I believe it's in California. It might be Nevada, but either way, it's a legitimate permission for Google to have a car drive around with no driver. I hope that really pans out. I'd like to see not having drivers any longer. It'd all be safer too if computers controlled all the cars. They do have to deal with the mechanics of it. If the car in front of you breaks down, you still don't want your car to hit it and so on. But I think that technology is nascent right now. Anyway, that's it. Just to recap, we talked about the new 7.8-inch iPads, if possible, the rumors about them. We talked about the new iPhone and iOS 6 accordingly, new MacBook Pros, new iMacs, all just rumors, but you never know. We talked a little bit about the MacBook Airs. We talked about Mac OS X, Lion, and Mountain Lion. And like I said, next time here on Apple Talk, we will talk about all the features in Mountain Lion. We talked a little bit about Siri, AirPrint, iCloud, and the flashback malware, and Tim Cook meeting John Boehner. And that's it for today's show. Thank you for watching Apple Talk by Creative Computing. If you would like to suggest a topic or ask a question on our show, please email appletalk@creativecomputing.com. Please visit Creative Computing for all your Apple needs, sales, or service. We are located at 423 Wall Street across from the Princeton Airport on Route 206. You can call us at 609-683-3MAC. Visit us online at www.creativecomputing.com. Like us on Facebook, follow us on Twitter, join our circle on Google+. We look forward to seeing you. Mention our Apple Talk TV show to any sales staff and receive 10% off accessories.